You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
I'll take notes. I'm a stenographer.
Welcome, everyone. We're New World Nomads. We're a network of creators, curators, and developers who champion explorations in emerging technology that focus on the human experience.
We amplify the voices and visions of creative entrepreneurs committed to multicultural collaborations at the intersection of art, commerce, and wellness.
As we move into a new era where technology and humanity are becoming intertwined, we're here to question the possibilities, confront the complexities,
and empower people to shape the landscape of this new world. There's many things that you and I talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But I think lately the thing that I've been the most excited about is this concept that we keep coming back to of like humanizing technology.
Yeah.
Which sounds almost like a paradox in and of itself, because technology, especially at this time in our lives, feels like it's not humanized at all. Like it's this sort of like looming threat
Scary
that,
thing.
taking our humanity away from us, which I definitely was one of those people more so before. I think, and I don't know if you were, but
I was, and I still have my, I understand the feelings that people have.
Yeah, but I mean, like a few nights ago, you Googled Midjourney addiction.
I had to. It's
so
real.
You want to tell us about?
It's super real.
My name is Segnon.
I have a problem.
I have a problem with Midjourney.
No,
first of all, for people who don't know what Midjourney is, can you?
So Midjourney is an AI technology that allows you to basically give your thoughts into text, and it will convert them into images. So anything you think about, come up with, like, I don't know, a panda dancing on top of a Christmas tree.
Oh,
and then
I have to try that later.
Yeah. And then they will generate it. And the more detailed the prompt is that you give, the more accurate it'll be. So you could put in there animated, you could put in there photorealistic, and it'll give you something. It's not always exactly what you want.
Yeah, if anything, actually, not only does it give you something, it gives you four something.
For something.
And then you choose, right? Like which one you want to quote unquote like up,
yes.
Right?
You can upscale. It gives you 4 different images. You can upscale one of them if you choose to, or you can upscale all of them, or you can ask for variations. So if you like one of them, but you're kind of like, I want to see different versions of that, you can click on that. It'll give you 4 different versions of that. And you can keep iterating. You can be like, oh, I like that one. And then it'll give you 4 different versions. You're like, oh, those 4, now I like that one. Give me 4 different versions of that. You can go down the rabbit hole over and over again. This is nothing I've done before. Clearly, but yeah, no, it's really good. And of course, with the prompts, you can just keep adjusting it. So if you get something and it's not quite there, the art is amazing. It's really lifelike. It gets to the point where, like, if you put references in there as well, if you put in, like, Salvador Dali, it'll give you something that was kind of done in the style of Salvador Dali, which is pretty cool.
And then you said another part too that is what I think is actually really part of the addictive quality of it too, is that you can see other people's sort of reactions to the thread that's going on. So then you start to get this communal, tribe-like excitement, because even though it's you and the AI working together, then you also do feel like you're having this human connection with strangers in the abyss that are also prompting and inspiring you without even necessarily knowing it, or seeing your images and getting ideas off of that. And so that's why I think it can become so hooking.
Yeah, especially so if you don't have a subscription to it, then you do everything. It's all done in Discord, right? So it's in a public space, and you see everyone's prompts, and you see what everyone else is doing. So you can see in real time, which kind of makes it can make it difficult sometimes, because if you put your prompt in there, like a second later, other people's will pop up, and you got to like scroll up to find yours. Yeah. But it does make it really cool, because you can see all kinds of different ideas that people are generating. And I actually have had it before where I've put in prompts, and then other people have jumped in and kind of taken my prompts and tweaked them slightly and done their own. I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. It's my prompt.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of layers to it, right? Because there's a lot. I mean, first of all, there's so many perspectives to this, right? Yeah. And I think Chris, who's engineering this podcast, who is one of, I would like to say, probably the earliest Midjourney addicts. Before, when Midjourney was like beta testing, before even other people had accounts or access to it, he had an access to it. And like our whole house constantly was just like, look at this, because it was just this unbelievable fascination, right? Yeah. But I also think that what's interesting now is hearing other people's reactions to it, where a lot of people are really angry. A lot of people are really skeptical and feel like very disrespected. And it's kind of forcing this interesting, I don't like to say that it's forcing a divide, but in a way it is kind of it's forcing at least the discussion of where are you on the fence of this new creative technology. Either you're probably more towards the side of like, it's going to ruin art and creativity and just take jobs from people and ruin innovation and originality and all of that. Or you're somewhere on the side of the spectrum that says like, let's automate what we can and see if we can work together with the AI so that artists can be more empowered to do the creative jobs that they want to do. But it's pretty extreme right now, right? The stance that people are taking.
people feel very strongly about it. And I posted one of my early AI art images on my Instagram, and I got chastised by an artist friend of mine. Yeah. Who immediately was like, that those prompts are pulling from actual artists, so they're stealing their art.
Basically plagiarizing.
They're plagiarizing, right? That's what. And so he got very upset that this is taking jobs away from artists, as you mentioned, and they're not entirely wrong. I think that the fact that it's so easy for anyone to be able to generate images like that look that good quality in seconds, I mean, it's definitely a concern for if you're an artist and this is someone you've gone to school, you've spent time, you put the work in, your craft, and now folks are doing that like in a second. I mean, there's definitely concerns there. I can see why people would feel that way. But on the other side of things, I think that it's definitely made people much more, at least me, I can speak to myself and my friends as well, like much more excited and engaged in art and wanting to learn more about it and get, and infuse it more into the things that they're doing. And so I still think that artists, particularly those folks who have background and understand language and can communicate exactly what they want visually better than your average person. So someone might say something like oh, again, this bear on this Christmas tree dancing, right? Whereas like an artist might say something like 30 millimeters, photorealistic,
right?
Top aerial view, like lighting coming from this angle. They'll have the ability to articulate it in a way to get closer to what they actually want, and closer to their vision than someone who doesn't have that knowledge or expertise. So I look at it and say like it's a tool that artists can use to make their lives a little easier, right? Or they can still take an image. Maybe you create a backdrop, that may have taken you a long time, where you're going to put a main character in the front, but you wanted to spend time in this. You have to create this backdrop. Let's say it's a dystopian future, and you can now create that image and go, okay, this is kind of what I want, and then work off of it, right? Then take that, then put that into Photoshop, then put that into Illustrator, then work off of it. So I think it still like gives artists the ability to create their vision. In some ways, I think it could be even faster. It could be better for them. But I understand the concerns. The concerns are valid.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, right? Because I feel like I'm still really figuring out where I stand, or I don't know, I'm standing. Maybe I'm swimming in it. I don't know what I am. I don't know where I am in it all yet. But I'm definitely excited, and I'm also super terrified. And I love that you use the word tool, because I think that's, what's that movie? Is it Arrival, where they're trying to sort of like interpret this seemingly alien species and the signals of language that they're getting. They're like, they think they're saying weapon, but really they're saying tool. And the words are sort of interchangeable. And it's such an interesting mirroring back that's to humanity or to any sort of civilization, that it's like tools and weapons do kind of share this double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Where it's like tools can be weaponized.
Right.
But they don't necessarily inherently need to be weapons. And that's maybe where the part of me is terrified and also then excited, because obviously I know the human's inclination to weaponize a tool. And it's interesting because it's not that different from like when Instagram first kind of really started picking up speed, and then all my photographer friends were infuriated because they said every single person now thinks that they're a photographer just because they can take a photo and put a filter on it.
Right.
And they weren't wrong to be that angry, because it's super infuriating. And yet at the same time, I can't deny the fact that I've seen people shoot full short films on their iPhone 12 or something, not even 14, you know, and I'm amazed, and it's beautiful storytelling and it's exquisite. And so it really does kind of, again, if we're forced into this divide, then maybe there's this third way where some people are saying it's not this or that, but like this and more, you know, where it's like, I think it's beautiful that we have tools to be able to make more things, and also hopefully we will continue to do more with them instead of less with ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is what we were talking about in terms of Chat GPT, which is another, right? So that's an AI. It's so funny because, okay, actually explain what Chat GPT is first, and then
I would say Chat GPT is like a way more advanced. It's text only, but it's way, at least at this point, but it's like a way more advanced Alexa, Siri. Like, you can put anything in there, ask it any question, ask it to do anything in terms of like, hey, I almost called it a person because I'm so used to calling it Alexa or Siri. But hey, Chat GPT, can you put together for me a list of the top 10 grossing films of this year? Or can you give me a marketing strategy on social media marketing for this event?
Right.
And it will deliver that to you.
Yeah.
So it's very, very capable. It can correct grammar. You can give it a paper you wrote and say, hey, can you find any grammars? Can you rephrase these sentences to make them more concise, to make them more clear?
And it sort of becomes more able and intelligent as you interact with it.
It learns from you.
Just like a toddler in a way, it picks up on what you're putting down.
Yeah,
you're implying, it starts to understand what you're wanting.
Yeah.
And curve, its responses towards that direction.
And you learn it together, because there was a point when I was like, can you draft this email for, I'm sending this email to a friend about XYZ.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't send emails. And I was like, what? I was like, no. Can you write the email? I will send the email.
Right.
Can you give me the text of the email? And I was like, sure. And then it's like, dear, and it wrote everything. So it kind of like, it learns. And I've had a few times where I've given it instructions and it's been like off. I'm like, no. I mean this.
Right.
It's like, I'm sorry, here. And it and it learns. It does learn. And then the next time I say something similar, it knows. It knows, okay, this is what she meant.
Right, which is like, we're at the cute part in the sci-fi film In the Scope of Humanity, where the thing is like, this cute little robot knows how to learn with me. And it's like the feeling of like, when you see like someone like who's adopted like a wild animal, and they're like, the wild animal is not yet aware that it's a full-grown lion.
Yes.
And they're like hugging the owner, and you're like, I'm slightly scared for you.
Yeah.
Very soon, I don't know what's going to happen.
It thinks it's playing.
You accidentally cut your arm, and then it forgets everything that you ever were, and you are now a dead man. So I feel like that's sort of like where we're at in the plot point of the technology history.
It definitely feels like
the robot's like, yes, let them think I am a cute little imbecile. Just
well, I was saying this earlier. It's funny how like I've only been using ChatGPT for a couple of weeks now, but I have been using it. I've been utilizing it, and it becomes really easy to rely on.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if you start
everybody's using it now.
Yeah.
My client, who's like a spiritual woman in her 50s who preaches, like just this just holistic, organic sense of anti-patriarchy, whatever, sent me some stuff last night. And she was like, I'm crafting my new moon meditations on ChatGPT. I was like, what world?
This is the world we live in now.
Because
it's fast. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, it's speed, right? It's efficiency. That's what it comes down to. It's like, if you can get this done in 30 seconds instead of taking 10 minutes, why wouldn't you do it that way?
And that's where it can be beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with everything having to do with like flow state and just biohacking and optimization, and essentially making it so that anything that can be automated or delegated as a task should be.
Yeah.
Because then you have all this time to be a creative, intuitive, insightful, experiential being, which is arguably why we're here. It's like in the hierarchy of needs, we can hopefully conquer the basic survival, which most of us haven't been able to because of the powers that be that keep us distracted by trying to survive every single day. And the idea that, AI and technology would make that easier. And yet again, I think that lingering underlying sort of, fear, or at least questioning, is, will that really be how it's positioned in our world? Will it be, hey, we can now allow a lot of the workforce to be transitioned into, AI or things that are automated, so that the humans can go be creative and be offered jobs in other capacities? But obviously a lot of people don't feel that way, because we haven't yet really seen a world that adopts these advents in a way that actually is advantageous to its quote-unquote common people. It's like, cool, now we have machines, so get out, I don't care about you, I can have the machine do it twice as fast, and I don't have to give them weekends off.
Yeah, I think you got to worry about like the top layer, right? Like the senior staff at any company. They're always, not always, but they're probably going to be fine, right?
Yeah,
like exactly. The layer of like the workers, the folks, the data entry folks, the folks kind of the middle of the road, and the creatives, right? We're talking about copywriters. We're talking about people who design
content creators
logos.
who are already being treated so wildly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so those folks are the ones you got to worry, because like if someone, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day about like coming up with an idea, storyboarding like something for a film, right? Yeah. And normally you'd have to go to someone to like, hey, here's my idea. Yeah. Can you draw it out for me? Just so I can see what it looks like. And now it's like I can do that in a second with Midjourney. And so I think something's going to need to be done to take care of those jobs that will go away. I think that there will be people who will maintain their jobs because they'll need to like control the AI. They'll need to be the ones who are overseeing it, because it's not 100% effective, right? It's not 100% accurate. No, like I tried using Chat GPT for to help me with song lyrics, and
that was weird.
It just wasn't. It wasn't great.
Midjourney is not completely right, because when you tried to put a photo of you and I together, it combined.
It combined us into DJ Quick.
And it made DJ Quick. Yeah. It looks exactly like DJ Quick.
It looks like a young DJ Quick.
You said that and I laughed, but then I look up the photos and I died. Oh my God, I died. So yeah, it's not fully accurate. No,
yet. It's not to the point where it's...
we know how fast it's going to...
Immediately. I mean, I think
like already
for a while the thing that it had was like it got fingers wrong, right? So like it would just like for some reason it would have like 7-8 fingers, like and limbs. Like sometimes there'd be extra limbs and stuff, which I think I was talking to someone about, an artist about this, and they were saying that's probably like when they're gonna fix that, right? And but that's gonna be something that like if you made art early and like say you sold it as an NFT, it's going to be kind of like a collectible of like, oh, the early days of Midjourney when they got the fingers wrong.
It's like in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's like the hot dog hand world. It's like that weird like in between one that people are weirded out by, but then it becomes that quirky.
I just saw people at Mardi Gras dressed up as them with the hot dog hand. So now it's become a thing. Yeah.
Oh, did you really?
I just saw it today.
God, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? And then that, that whole discussion of what's going to happen, how is it going to be used, are there ways to make this, again, the most empowering, positive outcome possible, I think then leads us into Web3, right? Which is, again, Web3 is a term now that's being thrown around a lot. I think we saw a statistic today that says that at least like 20% of millennials and Gen Z know what like NFTs or blockchain or Web3 are, but I think that's it. Yeah. And that's new even. I think 20% is even
that's
new.
High.
Yeah, higher than before. And whenever we're asked what Web3 is, and it's weird because I know a lot of people say Web 3.0, but I just feel that's like saying like the worldwide internet or something.
Yeah.
Internet. But for me, Web3 is this layer that's going to be, that is already, that is growing, that is expanding, that is evolving on top of everything that we already know now about technology and the internet. That's the easiest way, I think, to say it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of people have heard the term NFTs and they...
Metaverse,
yeah. And there have been different associations with some of these things because...
Like when people say, we were at that panel and someone was like, cool, all this sounds great. Where is the metaverse?
Right. Like where do I go?
Like,
where is that?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know.
No, people don't know. I mean, but I think I think more and more, you've seen more and more companies that are starting to get into Web3. They're doing it in gradual ways. Even things like museums are starting to incorporate digital art. I think they're aware that this is happening. Yeah. And so it's going to become more and more familiar to folks. I keep telling people because everyone's like, oh, NFTs, I heard about this scam, or I heard about, they heard about whether it's SBF or some other scam where there was a rug pull, or they hear like, oh, someone sold this little pixel art for like $80 million or something ridiculous, and it's a scam. It's like celebrities making money and whatever it is. And I always say to folks, like, NFTs can be anything. It's a file, right? It's like all it is a media file. And I'm like, I think that like, your registration for your vehicle will be an NFT. I think that, like, I'm like, that's the best thing I can say is because like, it makes more sense than just having it sitting in your glove compartment with coffee stains on it and, getting burnt up or something like it's like, it should be something you could access digitally.
House deeds.
Right. What's that?
House deeds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. House deeds.
I shouldn't be joining in. It's not.
I like it.
No, but it's true. It's like all those things that like someone's got maybe like in a drawer somewhere, hoping that they don't lose it, and it's like
exam papers.
Yeah, absolutely. And having a record of all that stuff, being able to keep that on the blockchain forever. I mean, it makes sense, right? Yeah. So it's like there's things like that just make sense. And when you think about the fact that we've been moving more and more into a digital environment, and having digital assets makes sense, right? It makes sense that like if we're going to be in a digital space on Instagram, social media, TikTok, all the new emerging, the metaverse, that we're going to want to acquire things, and we're going to want to be able to hold digital assets. Yeah. And that's what NFTs are. And so
it's interesting too, because I know people, artists that love digital art, and they just have such a huge resistance, to any of the conversation around it. And I think that's for many different reasons, right? Like there's personal bias sometimes. There's just, again, this resistance to the hype machine, or whatever it is. There's many layers stacked on top of each other, and then I think a lot of it is just miseducation also. Obviously, I think the first conversations that I ever had about NFTs were like very, very heated. Actually, you were there, and I would like interrogate people that would tell me about NFTs, because I found it just infuriating, but also intriguing, because somehow, and I don't know if it was just subconsciously or whatever it was, but I had this odd sense of being magnetized towards it, because they knew there was something interesting in the conversation for me. Yeah. And I think we now have had this experience so many times, because we've worked with so many people that we onboard in different capacities, where we can kind of find like, what is your inroad? What is the thing that's going to light you up about this? And for me, it was creator sovereignty, definitely. Yeah. And I think that ties into the whole conversation we're having now in terms of what are the possible positive outcomes of technology taking jobs away? Is it that creators could kind of be forcibly, unfortunately, but forcefully shifted away from this work for hire way that we've existed, as freelancers or whatever it is, where we just get paid a fee and then thrown back out into the street to try to go find the next gig to pay the other portion of our rent with, and it's almost like without having a system of ownership and longevity in what we do, we won't be able to continue. And that's where I think like we're in this interesting space right now. There's this big gap, right, of the possibility and the opportunities, and then the things that need to happen in order for us to be able to integrate, maximize, and truly work with those opportunities. And I think right now, especially because both you and I have friends, in like international spaces and developing countries, we know what it's like to day in, day out have a creator's grind. And not even just a creator's grind. You might just be someone who's doing something that seems non-creative, but you're doing something to keep your lights on and your children fed or whatever it is. And now thinking that some sort of technology can come and take that job away from you, and you being given this sort of Pollyanna attitude by a lot of people that are like, but it's great because it's going to empower you to be your own business owner, and you can just, like have the equity for the long term and make it work for you. Like, cool, how do I eat next week? Right. And I think that that's the stopgap that we're at right now. And those are the kinds of conversations, obviously, that you and I are having with a lot of different people too. And that's even why we feel like we're nomads in this kind of, abyss state between, the old world was like, okay, the resources are fucked, things are on fire, like things have not gone so well here. We've heard there's this land out in the future. We know others have been there. They've done well. They've come back. They've sent boats. We've built some boats. We have just enough supplies to get from here to there. And I feel like there's this interesting dynamic of, if you are someone that has just enough supplies, which I feel like I identify as that kind of person, because of the situation I was born into in my life, because of how I've lived my life in past recent years or whatever, all of those things, whether logical or mystical, that happen in a person's life to put you at a certain timing and opportunity, whatever that is. I feel like I have just enough resources on the boat to get across this sort of, ambiguous sea of not knowing what's going to happen. I have enough skills to survive. I have just enough opportunities. I have just enough of life raft. And I know I have enough gumption that when I get to wherever this, you know, new frontier is, that I have enough like intensity about me that I will survive.
Right.
Survive. But I'm also aware that I have, you know, friends or loved ones or whatever it is who don't have the similar amount of resources. And yet, you know, in that survivor island version of my life, I'm like, but they deserve to be in the new world too. They deserve to make it. They deserve to get there. And so we're in this really interesting sort of period of time where it's like, okay, well, what do you do when you can't necessarily ration out your resources to other people because you need it to survive, but then you also want to send messages in a bottle to help them, you know, like prepare on the way. And it's just, I don't have this is a meandering sort of statement. I don't have like a period end to the statement because we both know this is just where we're at. But I say all of that to say, from these conversations that people are having about technology, whether you're afraid because it feels so inhumane and unhuman, or you are really excited because you feel like it can enhance your human experience, I think we can all agree that we have no idea how it's going to play out right now.
And I think that's what's the scariest part to folks. I think that like whether you enjoy the current status quo or not, it's familiar. And it's what people know, even if they don't necessarily love it, right? Even if the system right now, like you talk about resources are dwindling, you know, as is, regardless of this, right? It's happening. And so like that new world, we don't know what it is, but hey, there might be some resources over there, right? Like, and I know that there's challenges to even get to the point where we can traverse to get there, but it's worth looking at, right? You have to look at,
you actually have to.
Yes, absolutely, because I think that you know, to be blind to that, I think to like understand resources are dwindling and understand that there's opportunity there, and because the space is still so new and hasn't been like established yet, and some of the ethos and the values behind Web3 are, you know, at least right now, right before things have been quote unquote corrupted, we assume things will always be corrupted, but the values are about sovereignty and control and owning your stuff, right? And creating your own path, forging your own path, building your own stuff, right? Get into like building smart contracts and coming up with your own ideas. So it, like, if you're someone who has thoughts about innovating and doing things in a dramatic, bold, big way, think about like when the internet began. Think about like, okay, I've got an idea. I'm gonna go buy a domain and sell whatever I want to sell. I'm gonna sell, you know, pet food, you know, and pets.com is probably a bad example because that was a big, huge scandal. But the idea that you could come up with an idea early on, right? Like it hasn't been done before. It's new terrain, and create something that could be the next Amazon, the next Google, you know, you could do something like that within Web3. I think that lane is still there, and so 100%. It's important for folks to even if you're not going to be Jeff Bezos.
And that's what I was going to say too. Is I feel like, you know, again, another part of this interesting reality that we're living in is some people are like, I don't want to own a business. I don't want to be that person that, you know, changes the face of the entrepreneurial landscape with some. And obviously, I mean, we resonate with that. We know those people, but I think again, it's then now in the hands of those of us who do want that to understand, okay, so what is this ethical kind of capitalism, which is what we were talking about too. Just as much of a paradox as like humanizing technology, ethical capitalism, which shouldn't be as much of a paradox because truly capitalism was actually meant to, you know, serve in a true community building fashion, but we all know what it's become. But I think like for those of us who do want to pioneer and build and expand and, you know, provide these frameworks of new opportunities, can we actually make sure that we're doing that in a way that provides space for the person who's like, I just want to work a job and like raise my kid, you know, and I don't want to feel like I'm not worth living if I'm not going to be this award-winning, company-creating human being. Because that's another thing that I think is not fair per se for us to envision this concept of Web3 that is only for these, you know, elitist, executive, high performing, high achieving minds or people. And I think that's actually where a lot of it has kind of gone. You know, I think it started just like with a lot of things that generate up through the culture. I think a lot of it actually did start with normal people doing normal stuff. And now it's in an interesting place where I would like more normal people to actually take it back. So I think that's why we're having these conversations too. Yeah. It's like we want to tell more people about it so that it doesn't get lost in this hidden cachet of only the people that have been exposed to it are the ones that have the control of it.
Well, and I think that ends up being the case with most industries. It's like, you know, in this case, I'll call it like the tech bros, right? Like the tech bros take control, and then those values that have been the same values that have been things that wouldn't be called ethical capitalism in you know, in other industries get carried over into Web3. And so I think that it's not just for, you know, your next CEO, next entrepreneur per se. I mean, the folks that I talk to, a lot of independent artists, right? Folks who right now put out songs on Spotify that do well, and they don't see very much out of that. They see 0.00, you know, 1 cent per every stream, and it's like that's not, you can't maintain an income off of that. And so something as simple as that is something as simple as a fair wage, right, for the art that you create. For an independent musician, I think that, you know, is something that Web3 affords. It doesn't have to always be, like you said, these big, huge businesses that can be billion-dollar industries and all this stuff. Because those opportunities are there as well. So I think it really allows for folks to be creative and innovative in ways that work for them, right? Like you could be someone who's got your own small business, or someone who does your own kind of independent contracting, and find ways within Web3 to just maximize your potential. And I think it's just one of those things that people should just like educate themselves on it, but you know, before just kind of eliminating it based upon a couple of headlines or a couple of things. And, you know, especially since like what I heard initially was tech bros, and influencers that I didn't
like crypto art or something, you know, which and I get it, technically it's not wrong, someone saying that, but it also doesn't sound enticing. It's not. No, it's not inviting. It sounds a lot of weird. People. It sounds weird. Yeah, and I think again that's why we're here, right? We're here to have these conversations where it's just essentially making it all as accessible and like low to the ground as possible. Because truly neither you or I would be here having this conversation. We'd be somewhere having some conversation because we've known each other for so long and we're always having some conversation. But we wouldn't be having this conversation if both you and I hadn't been sort of ushered into Web3 by people that are just real ass people that we've known for a long time, that we really trust, that are good humans, that care about super just sincere, genuine connections, community. And I think a lot of people don't get that invitation in. They get a totally different glimpse and they just shut the door, like you said. And I think to just even have conversations about it or be open to it is super important. And I'll also say one thing that I really like is you and I have discovered lately, as we've been talking about technology, that technology has kind of been, it's kind of like stolen the term technology, but technology is something that has existed before digital technology existed, right? We have these mathematical systems, we have these sort of primary, you know, foundational architecture of the universe technologies, like the technology also even just of your own body and your own nervous system and the way that your mind works. And, you know, there's so many different kinds of technology, but we've shoved all of technology into this bucket of this estranged metallic, you know, kind of like just not at all human or emotional experience. And I think it's also really important to reclaim that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think you're right. I mean, you talk about human technology. I mean, I think since the beginning of man, like, you know, like we've been doing this, we've been evolving, and it's what's kept us alive, frankly, right?
Yeah, and even before we were alive, there's a technology of the universe that makes things exist and orbit and continue and And
I think it's funny that we go through this, and I say we as in the collective we, because, you know, we're part of this generation, but it's been, I think every generation goes through it, whether it's like, you know, industrial revolution, printing press. It's like there is technology that comes that changes everything. Cotton gin, right? Like it's like these things are just like, oh, all of a sudden this is going to change, and in many cases it results in the loss of industry, the changing of the way people think about things, the creation of the internet, right? It's like just like these things are radical, and they move. Like I think we're so used to gradual change because that's just how life generally is. Like we complain about incremental progress and things like that, and then some technology comes in. It's like, and we go, whoa, this is a little too fast. Can we make this a little more incremental?
Our lifetime hasn't been incremental at all.
No,
right?
not at all.
I think that's also why people are freaking out, is because we see the intensity of the trajectory of like how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
So I think that's also, it's normal to think, wow, things seem to keep getting more intense. They seem in a lot of ways to keep getting worse. And I can only put together in my mind that, and again, this is again the part of your human technology, is this is how fear works, is it takes like negative past experiences and it projects them into the future and then calculates and says, so my odds come up that the future is going to look grim. But I think that obviously is shifted by the more information that you get, the more that you actually flesh out the fullness of that image, and you're not just coming from this reactionary survival mode.
Yeah.
So I feel like, actually, before we wrap up, I wanted to look at the quotes that we found today. We were looking for technology quotes.
We were looking for inspirational technology.
To be fair, I think a couple of them were, but a lot of them weren't. And I think it's a good way to wrap up what the world is thinking about technology. So do you want to read some? Yeah.
The first one's pretty good, actually. Technology is best when it brings people together.
Yes, and the funny thing is we said it's by some sort of like anonymous social media entrepreneur. Yeah. So he would.
Yeah, of course.
Whoever Matt Mullenweg is. Yeah. He's not wrong, but he would say that.
Yes.
It feels a bit biased.
But this next one,
Einstein. It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity.
This was, I don't even know when this was said. This was said before Chat GPT.
Way before.
This is before the internet.
He didn't even know about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Einstein. Yeah. I mean, do you think he's wrong?
Exceeded our humanity. It's still part of us at the end of the day. Like AI is still a part of us. It's still getting fed information by humans. It's just collecting it at a very high rate. So I exceeded to some respects, I would say yes, in the sense of if you put information in there, it can spit it out faster, probably than most humans can, right? Like if you ask it a question with a very detailed, long answer, it'll just spit it out relatively quickly. So in that sense, yes, but it still relies on us. It's still like, it still needs to be fact checked. It still needs to be corrected. It still needs to be modified, and all the input is still coming from humans. So I don't think we're not at that point in the movie yet when it's taken over, right? We still control it. So I don't think it's exceeded our humanity. I think that it's taking our humanity forward. It's able to make our humanity more efficient in some ways, but I don't think it's exceeded it yet.
Yeah.
So
I'm
better than Albert Einstein. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I feel that it itself has not exceeded our humanity, but its focus in our life has exceeded our humanity. I think we prioritize our focus on technology over our focus on, and let's say digital technology, external technology, over inner technology, human technology, the technology of, mastering your thoughts and connecting to your breath and your body and your voice as a way to generate things and create them in the world. I think that our focus on that has exceeded our focus on our humanity.
I could see that. I could say it's one of those things where yes, that's definitely true. And the influence of social media and all these things in terms of the first thing a lot of people do in the morning is they grab their phones, right? Technology. They go on social media, they go on Instagram, they go on TikTok. And a lot of people, if you see people in New York City on the trains, they're in their phones, they're not interacting with other humans. But the strange thing is that they're mainly in their phones because they're trying to interact with humans in some way through the technology.
I know, and that is probably a conversation for the next episode, because that is, again, the huge interesting paradox of humanizing technology. Technology is best when it brings people together. However, a lot of us aren't truly brought together by technology because of other systemic issues that we have, which is emotional availability and people not teaching you how to be intimate or vulnerable or whatever that is. But that's not the technology's fault. It's just right now being exacerbated by all of these beautiful escapist opportunities that we have with technology to basically give us a hit of dopamine that makes you feel like you connected with someone, right? They've shown that. There's science, lots of science that shows like when one of your friends, let's say even that you love, and they like a photo you've posted and they drop you a comment, you get this dopamine hit that in a way kind of fills your need to like get a call from them or a text from them or something like that. But it doesn't over time actually create the same deep, long lasting experience of like, you know, more serotonin experiences, and like those are different chemicals. So in a way we're kind of going for like the shorter, faster hits through technology, and then not necessarily setting ourselves up for like the longer lasting.
This is true, but at the same time I would say that for me, one of the ways in which I started to become much more aware of the healing powers that I have within myself, my human technology, was through watching YouTube videos.
100%. You know? I know. And Instagram saved my life when I was like on a healing journey and I felt like I had no one around to talk to. Like I told some traumas to someone on Instagram in a DM that I've never told to anyone else, you know? It's confusing. It's a confusing yes and no, awful, wonderful kind of thing.
It's all the things.
It's all the things.
I think there's one quote in here that I think maybe we can finish with this quote. Okay. Because I think it's not necessarily positive or negative
Okay.
This is what it says: the web as I envisioned it, we have not seen it yet. The future is still so much bigger than the past.
Wow. And that's by Tim Berners-Lee, inventor of the World Wide Web. They said World Wide Web.
Wow.
Find out 25 things you might not know about the World Wide Web. Oh, we're gonna talk about these ones in the next time.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I really love that quote. And I mean you're like ever the optimist realist, and so am I. So I think we're, you know, in a way we're able to hold that and bring that in a true way, because I think, you know, a lot of people might say that that's ridiculous.
I think at the end of the day we're still in control of our destiny.
Yeah.
You know,
that part is, again, when I was saying that right now, and always, but especially right now, when times are heightened, stakes are higher, we get pushed into these divides, and they don't necessarily need to remain divides, but it's like a sifting process. You know, when you're cleaning your room and you're like, okay, these things go here, these things go here, they probably don't stay in those random separate piles, but you just need a way at first to start to organize, you know, like your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, while we're organizing our thoughts about what's happening in the world, because so much is happening so fast, much faster than our internal processing systems have ever experienced, probably in the history of humanity, you would imagine. I've read so many statistics about how we intake more information in 1 minute than someone in the 1950s did in a day. Just the sheer amount of faces you scroll past.
A week.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that while we're in this sifting and sorting phase, right? Like I said, you're on the boats, you're going from one world into another world. You know that you're like hanging in the balance of like, we mostly have enough resources. So other people that you love are on other boats and you know they don't have enough resources. Like it's, like you said, it's all the things.
Yeah.
But I think if you are someone who chooses in that state of sifting and divide to really believe that you control your own destiny, then you can disagree on a million different things, but you're probably going to come down to a very similar perspective of this new world, this new frontier, this new space that we have that's available to us can't be a bad thing, as long as so many people actually climb in and try to get involved. And that's what I think is something that we share. We're like, okay, well, everybody might have different opinions, but I'd rather have them all in the room than just having a couple people in the room who have the same opinion, because at least all of those people, those diverse people and those diverse voices are going to be here shaping the space instead of trying to come in and shape the space after it's already been developed, right? But it's like just colonialism part 5 billion. Let's just repeat that again. And that, I don't want to see that. And I already feel like I'm seeing a version of like colonialism in the metaverse, you know, where you're seeing like these, and again, it's not just about, you know, color, but it's about perspective. It's like privileged people that have a certain perspective of what life is, building spaces that they then want populated by other people of color, indigenous people, like disadvantaged people, whatever, to come into the space. But like, no, we want all of us to build the spaces.
Yes.
like to build the space, not just come to your space and add value to what you've created. So that's why I think if you can look at all of this and say, wow, I really don't know how I feel about all of it. Maybe that's going to fluctuate all the time. But if you know that you're someone who feels empowered by the perspective that you can control your own destiny, then I swear there's a space for you in Web3 in some way, somehow, even if it's just you getting in and just having like ethical conversations with people and that becoming things that you can't even imagine right now.
That's perfectly put. Yeah, I think we are empowered, right? And I think that like going into this new technology, like a lot of folks are not used to the possibility or even like the notion that you could be empowered, right? Because the system we're in, again, doesn't necessarily fully work, but we're used to it. Oftentimes doesn't empower folks. Yeah. And so it's very easy to have a cynical perspective that, that these folks are going to come in who've done things the same way they've always done things and run things that way, and things will always be that way. But when we are in a unique time and there's a unique opportunity to actually be able to be empowered, share your perspective, shape the space, it'll become what we want it to become. And so I think that as long as folks know that and aren't kind of reflexively being cynical and pessimistic about the potential, like we own it, we can shape it. No one owns it but all of us, right? And so it's like unless you want the same people who've been doing the same things they've been doing to do it, it's time to jump in and speak up and we can control our destiny. We really can. Yeah. So yeah. Cool.
Thanks for joining us for our first experiment. We did it.
Yes.
It was fun.
It was real fun.
Yeah.
So much to talk about.
If so much to talk about, we could talk for a really long time. If this sees the light of day, please hit us up with what you're interested to talk about. We will talk about so many things, and we will be ever clearer, and potentially maybe even invite some guests and humans through. We're sitting in a music studio, so we'll probably also do some live performances.
Yes. We got to do that. Yeah. We got some things.
A lot of things.
Some things.
Yeah, I know, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, thanks for joining us in this Genesis episode.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Peace.